Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Hey, well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Daily Truth Report. I'm your host, Noah, and joining us today are first-time guests on the screen with us, Joel and Kathy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Noah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is going to be a little different one for us, but I think it's going to be so good for a lot of people. And like I always say, we've talked about a lot of things over the years. You know, we spend most of our time covering the news. And that's certainly where I'm most comfortable, you know, covering Donald Trump fighting against nasty Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. But today we're going to be totally different. We're going to be talking about talking to some marriage experts here today. And they actually reached out to me probably a year ago. We were having so much censorship online that I said, hey, we can't get anything out right now. We're under attack. But come back in a year and flash forward, here they are. So really excited to introduce them to all of you and having them on the show today, because I think, maybe we can do some good and help a lot of people. So like I told them before we got on, not my area of expertise, but hopefully I can be a good host here and be a good introduction for them to a lot of people out there, and maybe we can do some good in the world. So Joel and Kathy, you have quite an incredible story. Getting to know you the past few days and reading up on your history. I don't know who wants to take it away first, and you can kind of tag team it, but assume that most people don't know you, don't know anything about your story. You're wonderful marriage counselors now, but maybe start at the beginning and tell us how we got to this point.
Well, we lived up in Ohio, and we met actually at a flea market when he was selling 8-tracks and cassettes, and I just happened to walk in and looking for some music and stuff, and I got the chance, met him, and then we went out on our first date. We were married 7 months later. That was in 1983. We got married in 84, and our first year was good, and then our second to our 10th year was really bad, and in the 7th year, he got into adultery. And then the next 3 years were far worse than the first 7. Until finally in our 10th year, I just said, I am not doing this. And so I told him I was divorcing him. Fortunately, we got in front of the right information. And then from there, here we've been married 30 years now. We've been helping couples for 20 years. As a matter of fact, we just got our PhDs just here recently, which are 20 years, honorary PhDs after 20 years of helping couples. So we've been in the trenches. And it's been an amazing ride. It's our passion. It's what we love to do. So, amen.
Absolutely. And actually, we had 10 bad years. So we've been married 30 years now. So total of 40 years.
Yeah.
Happily married for 30 years. So we like to say we've been married. Yeah, 30. So we like to say we've been married for 4 decades. 1 decade great, and 1 decade bad, and 3 decades great. So we loved Jesus with all of our heart. Like when we got married, we were on fire for Jesus. We ended up pastoring a church. So it wasn't that we were like these non-Christians that had this bad marriage. We were Christians who were out there. We were winning souls for Jesus. We were laying hands on the sick and, voting Republican and all that good stuff, and Ronald Reagan, and of course our wonderful Bush years and all that good stuff. But our marriage was really bad behind closed doors. So some of you listening right now, it might be the same thing. You're Christians, or one of you or both. One of you might be a Christian, the other one maybe not, but you're struggling in your marriage, and we want to help you with that. We figured that out. And as Kathy said, that whole thing started with her saying, Joel, I'm going to divorce you.
Yeah.
And so what happened during that first 10 years is Kathy did what our beloved Christian world told her to do, which we're on fire Christians still to this day. We're part of a church and all, and we have our own group on Monday nights and etc. So we are straight Christians all the way. But the body of Christ told Kathy that what she was supposed to do was she was supposed to love me, pray for me, submit to me, follow my leadership, and respect me no matter how I treated her.
Yeah.
And so I obliged by treating her bad. And the church just kept telling her the wrong advice. They said, just keep loving him, just keep praying for him, just keep submitting to him. And it made me worse, and it made me worse, and made me worse. Culminating our 7th year of marriage, while we were pastoring a church, as Kathy said, I got into adultery. This is way back in 1991 when I got into adultery. So obviously many, many years ago. And the 3 years after that adultery, as Kathy said, it was even worse than the first 7 years, because now we're on the other side of adultery. And Kathy, as the way the church taught it, she could have divorced me because of the adultery, but I got out of the adultery, and she'd spent 7 years praying for me, submitting to me, respecting me, following my leadership while I'm mistreating her.
Yeah.
She didn't divorce me at that point, but the next 3 years were even worse. Why? The Bible says, as a man sows, so shall he reap. And so Kathy kept treating me nice when I'm treating her bad. And that's very confusing to a guy, because I'm supposed to reap from what I sow. If I go to work and I don't do a good job, I'm going to get fired by my employer. I'm going to learn real quick that I've got to do a good job or I can't keep a job. And so Kathy was doing what she was told. She loved Jesus. People say, well, it takes two people to create a divorce. The only thing Kathy did wrong in our marriage that 10 years was loved Jesus. And that's not wrong. She just loved Jesus with all of her heart, to where she would do whatever she was told she was supposed to do, by our pastors, Bible school teachers. We both went to Bible school together and things, and marriage seminars that we went to. And everybody said the same thing to her: just submit to Joel, respect him, pray for him, follow his leadership. And again, it made me worse and worse and worse.
It did. And so fortunately we got in on the other side of this whole thing. And so it was, God ended up moving us into the marriage ministry, which was kind of a shock to us. So
yeah, after our marriage got healed, which was 1994, we went to a 6-day training course. I was tricked into it. Kathy decided she's going to divorce me. She said, Joel, I'm divorcing you.
Well, the day that I told him I was going to divorce him, I ran out. I said, I don't care about God, the Bible, or the church at this point. My only job is to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible, grab the children and get out of this. And I didn't even know I was an abused wife. Well, I ended up hearing about some class that the pastor was taking some people to. And I went and found him. I said, look, you get us into that class. I don't care how you do it, but if you don't, there's going to be a divorce in your church. Well, we ended up in that class, and we were there for that whole week. And I came home with a brand new man after that class. God did a miracle and put a seed inside of him of change. And it was a matter of me just watering it at that point to be able to push us forward and telling him, I've learned that I'm an abused wife and I don't have to stay. And that God's going to be okay with me if I walk. So it's really up to you whether I stay or not. You treat me good, I'm here. You treat me bad, I've got to go. I can't stay. So that's how we ended up doing this thing.
And by the way, our goal when we help couples is to see you have an outrageously happy marriage. We don't want to just see couples stay together in misery. We want couples to be outrageously happy. So that's the goal. That's where we take you to. That's what we've been enjoying for 30 years.
Yeah.
So when we went to that class, Kathy had said to me, Joel, I'm divorcing you. And so it's like, okay, she's divorcing me. Something has to change. She said, if nothing changed, she said, I'm divorcing you first. Then we found out that she was pregnant with our daughter, Shekinah. When she found out that she was pregnant with our daughter, Shekinah, she came and just crying in bitter tears, I can't divorce you. I'm pregnant. I'm going to have to wait till our new baby is 6 months old, and then I'll divorce you. Because we had 3 other small children, so she just couldn't do it all by herself. And she said, but this does give an opportunity or a chance that if things are different after the new baby is 6 months old, we won't have to get divorced. But if they're the same as they are now, I'm going to divorce you. I believed her, number one, because she had never, ever, ever said the word divorce. We got married. We said, we'll never use the word divorce. I used it a few times just to abuse her, but she had never said it one time in 10 years. So I believed what she said. I believed she would divorce me. The only problem was I thought Kathy was the problem in the marriage. I was in complete and total delusion. People today would call it narcissism. It's a very popular word. Well, a narcissist thinks that their wife is the problem and that they're just amazing. Well, that's what I was. That's the way I thought about myself. And so I thought, well, this is interesting. Kathy's going to divorce me if there's no change, but she's the problem. So I was kind of like, okay, all right, let's see what happens. I was like, I wasn't going to divorce her. I mean, after all, she'd been trying to love me and trying to pray for me and trying to respect me and all that stuff. Yeah. But, I'm mistreating her. So we go to this class, and Kathy said she kind of tricked me into going. The pastor said, Joel, how would you and Kathy like to go and learn how to minister to couples where the husbands are beating the wives up, and you could help be a part of our ministry team here at the church? What he really was saying was, without saying it, Kathy said, if we don't get you to these meetings, that she's going to divorce you. So it was a last ditch on his part to make a change.
It appealed to your ego.
Appealed to my ego. Hey, it's like a narcissist, right? A former narcissist, or at least narcissistic thinking. Hey, he knows how good I am. He knows how important I am. And so off we went to the class. Well, as they started teaching, they're talking about these marriages where the men were beating the wives up, and we were being trained to be moderators, if you would, of these classes that we'd go back home and they'd hold them in our church, and courts would assign couples where there was physical abuse to come to these classes, and we'd be facilitators of those classes. Well, they're talking about these marriages where the men are hitting their wives. And about halfway through the first morning, I had no patience at all. I was about like a 2-year-old. I raised my hand and nobody else had any questions. And I say, "Oh, what's your name?" And I said, "My name's Joel Davis, and his wife Kathy." And said, "This is really good. I hear you're talking about marriages where the man is the problem. I wonder if you're going to talk about marriages where the wife is the problem." And "Oh, we'll get to that later." Okay. Well, that afternoon about 2:00, I just couldn't stand it anymore. I like a little 5-year-old in kindergarten. "I got to go pee. I got to go pee." Told you I had to go pee. It's like, Pip, yeah, Joel, you have a question? Yes. This is really good. I can understand these marriages where the men are, beating their wives up and they're causing a problem. Wonder when we're going to talk about marriages where the wife is causing the trouble. And we'll get to that, Joel. Okay, fine. Next morning, I interrupted the class again about 10 in the morning. Started at like 7, went from like 7 till 6 for 6 days. I interrupted the class the third time, same question. That afternoon, I was beside myself. It's like, these people are not doing anything to help us. If they only understood what they had in this room. I mean, Kathy and I lay hands on people. They get healed of cancer, blind eyes open, deaf ears open. If they could fix her, we could have a worldwide ministry winning the whole world to Jesus, because after all, I'm so amazing, right? And if we could get Kathy to be as amazing as I am, then we could go out and they could get the credit for saving our marriage and us going around the world and getting everybody saved. And so I asked the question, and I had to get the message across to the guy leading the class. And I said, this is really great. I can see in most marriages, the men's the problem. I'm wondering when we're going to talk. And I put my hand behind Kathy's head, pointed to the back of her head. I said, "When we're going to talk about those marriages where the wife is the problem." Yeah. And he just laid me out right there in front of everybody. And we came in a van with about 14 people, and they all believed my version of reality. The 2 different churches came together, going to do these programs, and drove all the way from West Virginia to Colorado for the program. And so they're hearing this going on. He says, "Joel, your wife is not the problem in your marriage. You're abusive to your core." He didn't know me from Adam. He's telling me I'm abusive. I thought I was a pretty amazing guy, man. I thought, hey, any woman would be happy to be married to me. And man, I had my list of what made me such a great husband. I never forgot Kathy's birthday. I never forgot Valentine's Day. I never forgot holiday. I mean, I did all these good. I could have written a book on how to be a great husband if I just took out all the garbage I did, all the putting her down and belittling her, and of course the adultery, but everything else, the yelling at her and manipulating her and everything else that I did to her. Anything that Kathy told me I did wrong, yeah, I could turn it around and make it her fault. I was professional like that. So he lays me out and said, "Joel, you're abusive to the core. If you ever deal with your issues, Kathy will be just fine." Yeah. And it turned out to be the truth. But man, that thing hit me like I felt like he took a machine gun and just splattered me up against the back wall. And the rest of the week, he'd talk about abusive men, how they act. He said, for example, abusive men will send their wife out on errands, either written errands, written lists, or verbal lists. When she comes back, he'll go over that list to find out things she either didn't do, forgot to do, or didn't do completely, or didn't do the way he wanted her to do it, so he can punish her. He's talking to everybody. And he goes, "You know anybody like that, Joel?" All week long, he was, right at me. And I made a decision. This man was running this program that we were at. He had been horrible, much worse than me. He would have been a pastor that had multiple affairs, had beat his wife up and left her bloody. He divorced her. He had a girlfriend that he pushed down a flight of steps, and she took him, back then they had a choice whether to press charges or not. He should have been in court for attempted murder, but back then women could choose. So her attorney came to him and said, "Look, my client's in the hospital. You have a choice. We're either going to press charges for attempted murder and we'll make those charges stick. You'll serve 14 years in prison. Or we found a program for men like you. It's a 3-year program you can go to. It's 3 days a week, 3 hours per class. If you ever are late for a class, if you're not participating and we're going to check up on you, or if you ever miss a class, we're going to press these charges." So you got a choice. You do 3 years of that program or we press charges. He went to the program. Long story short, a couple of years into the program, he got a total miracle. Yeah. He literally had put a gun in his mouth. It was loaded in his apartment, and he was going to blow his head off. And then he pulled the trigger. The gun didn't go off. Long story short, again, he survived. He didn't get killed. The bullet didn't go off. The gun didn't go off. Later, he checked it. It was a perfect gun, perfect bullet. Just God did a miracle. But God spoke to him, said, "I'm going to give you a program that'll help change the world if you're obedient to me and if you follow me." And that's what he did. So we end up in this man's class, years after his miracle, and he's teaching on this. So I thought, if this guy and his wife, because he's back together, him and his wife got remarried, and they'd been remarried at that point for years. I say, if this guy was worse than I was, and now he has this program, and what God spoke to him about changing the world, and he's telling me that I'm abusive, which I didn't think I was abusive. He's telling me the marriage was my problem, which I thought Kathy was the problem. He's telling me I was the problem. I said, you know what? Either he's smarter than me or I'm smarter than him. And probably for the first time in our first 10 years of marriage, Kathy actually heard me say, I'm going to assume he's smarter than I am, and I'm going to believe what he says. And so I just accepted it. I said, okay, I'm going to believe, instead of an amazing man of God, I'm going to believe I'm an abusive man. And I'm going to believe that instead of me, the Kathy being the problem, I'm going to believe I'm the problem. And they said, Joel, what you got to do is you got to listen to your wife's heart. Now, they didn't have any kind of follow-up. They weren't not a marriage ministry. They were a ministry for couples where the men beat their wives up, and that wasn't our marriage. But so they had no follow-up. They said, when you go home, the only way you'll ever quit being abusive is if you listen to Kathy's heart. We don't care what she says. She's right. You're wrong. Shut up and listen to your wife. And that's what I did. And it was murder, man. And again, today, might have been diagnosed narcissist in those days, or at least narcissistic thinking. To tell a narcissist, look, you're wrong. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you feel. You listen to your wife. She will teach you how to be a husband. And that's exactly what happened. And that came out of Genesis, where a woman has a desire for her husband, that God put a marriage manual in Kathy's heart. And sure enough, we went home. I listened to Kathy. I went through excruciating emotional pain myself. I didn't tell Kathy I'm going through excruciating emotional pain. I dealt with that myself because, that's manhood.
I didn't see any of it.
No. And so I just dealt with that myself. But Kathy was like, hey, I got my miracle.
Absolutely. 1 Peter 3:7 says, husbands, live with your wife in an understanding way as a weaker vessel, heirs to the kingdom, so that way your prayers are not hindered. And so he began to listen to my heart, to live with me in an understanding way, caring about what I cared about. And in response, I ended up caring about what he cared about. So, but he had to listen to me talk and share my heart. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart does the mouth speak. He's got to listen to me talk and care about what I cared about. So he did. And so here we are.
Absolutely. Now, it was excruciatingly painful. Every time Kathy would talk, I'd feel like I was being ripped apart inside. And I'd want to tell her to shut up, because for 9 years, again, we had married 10 years, 9 were bad. The first year was fine. But for that 9 years, when Kathy would start talking, I'd say, Kathy, quit talking. Kathy, drop the subject. Kathy, leave me alone. Kathy, quit harassing me. So now she's talking and I've got to listen to her. And there's all kinds of things going on, dysfunctions going on. My brain is all wired to tell her to quit talking, and I'm forcing myself to listen. And I mean, every word sometimes would be just like ripping me apart inside, not because she was mean, but because of my dysfunctions. And I'd be one to say, no, you're wrong about this. And I'd tell myself, shut up, Joel, listen to your wife. And that whole thing broke. And it took about 6 months after we got home before I started really getting a breakthrough. Kathy's miracle was right away. When, and this may sound funny to some people, but in our bad days, Kathy would get very hurt emotionally if I wouldn't give her affection, if I wouldn't show her that I loved her. And so when I hurt her, she'd cry and say, Joel, please give me a hug. Well, when she'd do that for 9 years, that was my signal to say, back off, leave me alone. You're too needy. I'd tell her, go talk to Jesus. Leave me alone. Get away from me.
Even if I asked him for a hug and he would tell me no at times, he goes, you don't need a hug. I'd be like, well, thanks for telling me. I'm thinking in my brain, thanks for telling me that I didn't need a hug. I didn't realize that, so, but he would actually tell me no to giving a hug or anything that I needed. If it was something that I was asking and he didn't want to do, it could be very painful for women.
Yeah. So when we got back from Colorado, the first time I said something that hurt Kathy's feelings, and she was like, Joel, please give me a hug. And, face scrunch up, makeup run, head spin, projectile vomit, little exaggeration there. And inside, I wanted to run out the door, man. Inside, I'm like, everything in me. For 9 years, I would have told Kathy, back off, leave me alone, quit harassing me, out the door. I can't handle this. This is too much pressure. And instead, I forced myself to, through all that dysfunction, to go give her a hug. Even with all that stuff going on inside of me, everything inside of me wanted to react to the way I'd reacted for the 10 years, the 9 bad years. And so I gave her a hug, and she's like, I got my miracle. I actually asked Joel for a hug.
And I got it.
I think if she got it, and for a dysfunctional man, anything Kathy asked me for, I would resist. And so her asking me for a hug, like, back off, leave me alone. And so anything she would ask me to do would be my signal not to do that. But Joel, can we please take some time together tonight? No, I'm busy. I got work to do. So it had to be my idea. Because again, if a guy who's narcissistic thinking, it has to always be his idea. And of course, in the Christian world, sadly, because marriage is not taught properly, women are taught to manipulate their husbands. They tell them, well, your husband's the head, but you're the neck. And if you could just make your husband believe that he came up with the idea, then you can get your husband to do what you want him to do, and he'll think it's his idea, but it was really your idea. And they teach that because marriage is taught wrong. The facts about marriage is we're a team. We're one flesh. And as a husband, I am to imitate Christ and lay my life down for my wife. So Kathy is, if she has something she wants to do, she's supposed to just tell me about it. Hey, Joel, this is what I want, or this is what I'd like you to do different, or like you to change. And of course, back in the beginning, there were lots of things. Yeah. So it was a regular process of coaching Joel and helping him change, especially in those first 6 months, and then over the next couple of years, less and less, but still a process because I'd fall back into an old pattern of giving Kathy. Sometimes I give Kathy just this look. She go, Joel, there's that look again. Yeah. I go, oh, I apologize. Thank you.
Put down, very demeaning. I used to tell Joel, I don't need the devil. I have you. Because his look would be so piercing. It'd be like it cuts you at the knees. And you just don't feel like that you can breathe. And you feel very put down, and you just feel like that you're nothing. So I just told him, you could crush me in a heartbeat just by your look alone. So many husbands do that. And they'll say, well, I didn't have a look on my face. We're like, well, that's amazing. How did you see your face? Because I saw your face. How did you see your face? That's amazing how you saw your face. Yeah. So we had to conquer all of that.
Absolutely. So go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, incredible story. And I know there's more to it. I want to get back to you in a minute, but I just wanted to jump in to say incredible story. You've got this guy who you ended up in his class, and he's got an incredible story of his own, and then he kind of transforms your life. And then one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is I saw all the testimonials from people that you have both impacted over the years. And so just kind of this cascading effect. And now you're getting to talk to more people here. So very different than what we normally talk about here. But I love to be a platform where we can get out helpful information and great stories. And you definitely have one of those. So please continue.
Absolutely. I even have my President Trump cup here.
There you go.
You're a great dad, very special, very handsome, really terrific. Everyone agrees.
Love it.
Guys, it's testimonies. We actually have a book that's available in PDF free on our site, but it's over 500 testimonies of people. That's all this book is. It's a whole full size 11 by 17 manual book, just all testimonies from people. So we've helped people all over the world and all over the country. And so,
well, I knew it was a big number. I was going to ask you if you have any idea over the years, do you have any idea of how many people you have interacted with and helped over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's easy to throw out, numbers and stuff, but, it had to be literally thousands. Now we have the first book, which is our Man of Her Dreams, the Woman of His. That has sold almost 20,000 copies now. And so a lot of people have found us. We do 5-day weekend marriage intensives. And we've done those for years, ever since 2007. And we would do those an average of 10 to 14 times a year. We do a few less right now per year, but we'd have 6 couples in each intensive. We do 4 now just because getting a little less energy now. We used to have, but we're doing good. And so those would be couples that actually read books, watched DVDs, and they needed so much help they actually came here for weekends. Mm-hmm. And so just those alone would be, in the realm of probably 1,000 couples. And but then we have phone calls 4 nights a week. And between the books and DVDs, and then couples we've helped on a personal one-on-one basis. So I'd say 2,500 couples, probably 3,000 couples that we personally have interacted with, plus all the folks that have read the books.
There are people that we've helped that by phone or whatever the case may be, where they actually got their miracle and they've gone on their merry way, that they've never contacted us back to said, hey, we just wanted to let you know the end result. We got our miracle. We're still married. We're happily and all this kind of stuff. So I know when our daughter Shekinah passed away, we had a pastor that called us or whatever. And he said, we were going to get divorced, but came across your book, read your book. We got a miracle, started teaching it in our church, and we had no idea about this person whatsoever. So there's just a whole lot of people in our world, and we've just been, we have a scripture as what God had told us. He said, I'm going to take you out of the fire. I'm going to put you back in, and I'm going to draw you back out.
To bring others out. Bring others out. Yep. We had a couple come from, I believe it was Vietnam. They were pastors. They had 50 couples waiting for them to do a marriage seminar. So they came all the way to America to come to our 5-day weekend intensive so they could go back and teach these 50 couples. Then we have a lot of couples like this. There's an older couple that came. This man had been a physical abuser for 40 or 50 years. His wife stayed with him and she just prayed. Of course, that didn't do any good, but she stayed into marriage. So they found us. And so we told her, look, you've been doing this all wrong. You've been praying for your husband for, 40, 50 years. They were an older couple. I think they've been married 50 years, if I recall correct. And so you've been doing this all wrong. You need to tell your husband that, look, if you don't change, if you don't do it, you're going to learn from Joel and Kathy, I'm going to divorce you. Well, she told him that. So finally, he was going to reap for all this bad stuff he'd done. He'd done a lot of bad. I mean, physical abuse, multiple affairs. And they're like 75 or something. So they came to our intensive and he completely accepted it and became a fabulous husband. And their church ended up, when people would come to their pastor for marriage help, the pastor would say, you need to go talk to this couple. And so we've had that with a lot of couples that came, got their miracles. Time went by to, give it a chance to solidify. And then they become the go-to people for their pastor. So the thing just, kind of keeps mushrooming out and multiplying, et cetera. We have a couple right now. They're good friends, Dwight and Loretta. They live in Connecticut, but they call themselves the Black Joel and Kathy, and they conduct a marriage ministry on their own now. They came to a 5-day intensive, and there had been multiple adulteries on his part, and it was just a mess. The marriage was a total disaster. She was one of the most angry wives we'd ever had come to an intensive, but they got their total miracle and living happily ever after and conducting their own marriage ministry now. So we've been doing this for 20 years. So we've got lots and lots of stories and miracles in people's lives. It's so rewarding to find couples who have really tough marriage problems and see them to get help. It's just really great.
Well, and with couples that end up losing a child, we lost a child 16 years ago. And so many families will end up falling apart, or marriages will fall apart because of that. What we have found was that our foundation was strong. So when that moment happened, we were able to survive and then ultimately come out on the other side successful. But many marriages, whether within the first year or a few years or whatever, they don't make it. And bottom line of that one is that there were foundational cracks already, and this just happened to be the final straw that ultimately took them out. But we've been successful coming out on the other side of that, and so we're able to speak to that in people's worlds when they've lost a child or in their marriages and stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. One of the cool things in the Bible says that God created women with a desire for their husband. Now, there's a curse that man that she so desired to love her would rule over her like an iron fist. That's like put her under his feet and crush her. That's the curse. So we as Christian husbands need to say to our wives, I'll never rule over you a day in our life. We're going to be a team, and I want to hear from your heart. What do you desire from me in our marriage? How do you want me to treat you? How do you want me to make adjustments to the way I treat you? And one of those things is to listen to our wife when she's talking with us. And going right back in our first book, we said one of the keys to marriage is, men, give your wife a safe place to talk, a safe place to share her heart, that you're not interrupting her. You're not telling her why she's wrong. You're just listening to her heart and trying to understand her, because the Bible says live with your wife in an understanding way. So the only way we can understand our wife is for us to listen to her when she talks to us. Then we talk in our books about giving your wife hugs and smiles and kisses and compliments. We like that so much. I actually tattooed on my arm, J&K and a heart, and HSKC, hugs, smiles, kisses, compliments, which is how sex keeps coming. Yes. Which also creates happy, safe, kind children. When they say mom and dad giving lots of public displays of affection makes children feel very comfortable. And so we're teaching these type of things. And one of the things we would teach in our intensives, I'd say, men, I drive the car. Kathy's usually in the passenger seat. I'm usually driving. And I told Kathy, I appreciate that, because if I can't be a control freak anymore in my marriage, at least there's one place I can still be in control. That's when I'm driving the car. And so, but I said, because Kathy's put her life in my hands, I tell Kathy, when I'm driving, if you ever feel unsafe, if I'm driving too fast, too slow, too close to the car in front, just tell me and I'll back off. I'll slow down. I'll speed up, however you want me to drive, because your life is in my hands. That means she's totally out of control over her own life. So I wanted her to feel like she has control over her life. And so I said, I give you back control. You're letting me drive. I give you control. that if I'm not driving in a way it makes you feel loved, valued, cared for, just tell me about it. Well, after we wrote our 2 books, we went to this seminar by, of all people, the gentleman that wrote the Mars and Venus books. And we had read those books years ago, and they're fine. But he was the keynote speaker, and it was quite a bit to get money to go see him speak. And we weren't going to spend that kind of money to go watch him. We were selling our books. We had a book table at this huge marriage convention. About 50 different book authors had tables and stuff. And the person that ran the whole convention came and asked us, we were going to go listen to him speak, and said, no, we don't want to spend that kind of money. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what, just go in for free. And if anybody asks you about it, just tell them I sent you. I'm the one that put everything together. It's like, okay. So we go in, we were so glad. It was a miracle of God.
Yeah.
Because he starts teaching about oxytocin and cortisol. And it's as if he took our books and said, folks, I'm going to explain to you scientifically why Joel and Kathy's 2 books have created miracles in marriages all over the country and all over the world. And he began to explain step by step oxytocin and cortisol, which was putting science behind everything in our 2 books. Oxytocin is that feel-good chemical in a woman's body that helps her to relax, be in a better mood, see things more positively, helps her to fight off disease better, helps her to be less stressed, less critical, less grouchy, helps her to be happier, helps her to, again, fight off disease, helps her to live longer, and most important, helps her want to make love more. More important than fighting off disease and living longer. And cortisol is a woman's response to stress, which is poison in her body. Now, every woman has to have a little bit of cortisol or she'd drop over dead, but any more than that little bit, it becomes a poison to her. And women are walking around all day, every day, hooked up to like an IV of a constant drip of cortisol in her blood. And then when stressful things happen, she gets mega doses of cortisol, and it's killing women. It makes them angry, grouchy, bitter, doesn't want to be touched, doesn't want to be around her husband. She gets sick. She gets sick. She starts losing years off of her life. And he said, man, this is an emergency. And the age of women dying is starting to get younger and younger. And if things don't turn around pretty soon, men are going to start outliving women, which has never happened since they've been keeping track of death rates. He said, because of so much cortisol in our American way of life. And he starts explaining how to raise a woman's oxytocin. Now, he does have a book, Mars and Venus, Mars on Ice, Venus on Fire, where he has a list of about 100 ways in the back where women can raise their own oxytocin. But he said nothing compares to what a husband can do for his wife. So he said, men, when you give your wife some flowers, that gives her 3 points of oxytocin. You're initiating, you're giving her the flowers. If she likes you, she receives the flowers. She smells them, opens up her spirit. Oh, those smell so nice. Thank you. Puts them in a vase, gives you a little hug. Thank you for the flowers. That whole cycle is 3 points of oxytocin. So now you need to give your wife 30 points of oxytocin a day just to neutralize the cortisol in her body. And so we're like, well, that's cool. Flowers are 3 points. Then he says, every time you give your wife a hug, smile, and kiss, that's 3 more points of oxytocin. We're about falling off our chairs because in our book, we encourage men to attempt to give their wife 20 hugs, smiles, and kisses a day. We're like, oh, my lands, we're teaching men to give their wife 60 points of oxytocin or target that. If you give your wife 10 hugs, smiles, and kisses a day, that's 30 right there. So we're like, wow, no wonder our books have been creating miracles. In addition to God just doing miracles for people because they learned the right way to be married. Yeah. And then he says, guys, give your wife a safe place to talk. As long as your wife is talking and you're not arguing, debating, you're not telling her why she's wrong, you're not saying, well, let me tell you how I see it. You're just listening to your wife and being agreeable and nodding your head and making little sounds once in a while to let her know that you're there with her. You're enjoying the conversation and you contribute to it, but it's in agreement with what she's saying. He said the whole time she's talking, her body's releasing oxytocin. And the longer she talks, the more her brain wakes up. So in the brain monitoring they did, they saw that after about 5 minutes that one part of her brain would start lighting up because of this flow of oxytocin. After another 5 minutes or so, another part of her brain. After another 5 minutes, another part of her brain. And after about 20 minutes of talking with her husband, and again, him not interrupting, not arguing, not debating, not telling her a different point of view, just nodding, smiling, making pleasant comments that contribute to what she's saying, like, oh, really? And what did you do then? Oh, how'd that make you feel? Oh, is that right? Wow, that's amazing. Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, wow, that does sound exciting. You're right. As long as it's going like that, her whole brain after about 20 minutes is just lit up. with activity on the brain scan, sending positive signals all throughout her body. And her body was coursing with oxytocin. And we're like, oh, my lambs, that's right in our first book. Give your wife a safe place to talk. Listen to your wife's heart and just let her talk with you. And anytime, day or night, any tone of voice, any attitude, using common sense, of course. If you wake your husband up at 2 a.m. on Monday night, he has to get up at 6 a.m. and go to work. Okay, fine. He needs to listen to your heart. The next night, probably shouldn't wake him up at 2 a.m. again if he has to go to work next day. We don't want to kill him, And so he just went down the line. And then he says of other things that raise a woman's oxytocin that would.
Well, so when a wife is talking and a husband interrupts, it stops the oxytocin and cortisol kicks in. And so you want to have her keep on talking so that oxytocin keeps on flowing. Because the moment you do that, now cortisol is skyrocketing and the oxytocin is going down. So it's got to be one or the other. It can't be both at the same time. So you really, really, really want her to keep on talking and sharing her heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he said the number one way to raise your wife's oxytocin, said, now this is going to get kind of scientific here. This is quite the formula. So you got your papers and pencils ready. And we're like falling off our chairs because, again, everything he'd been talking about were things we teach in our books. We're finding out that our books are teaching men how to raise their wife's oxytocin. And, of course, a wife, being receptive to that, being receptive to the hugs, smiles, and kisses. And your husband initiates a hug, you hug him back. Or he gives you flowers, you fluff them up and thank him and give him a little hug. When you're talking to your husband, you go ahead and talk to him. Sometimes a wife will stop talking to her husband because he hasn't listened. And so what you have to do is convince your husband, or husbands, you have to convince your wife that it's safe to talk, that you want her to talk, or wives tell your husbands, look, I need to talk to you. I need a safe place. You can't keep interrupting me and talking over me and arguing with me, or we're never going to have a happy marriage if you keep doing this. And, get them our books and all that good stuff. We can help you on. But he said the number one way to raise your wife's oxytocin is, are you ready for this? It's the formula. You got to write this down. We're on the edge of our seats. He says, driving a car in the way that makes your wife feel loved, valued, and cared for.
Yeah.
On my lands. We've been teaching that in our intensives for years. And that's the number one way to raise a woman's oxytocin. It's also the number one way to raise her cortisol. If you want to poison your wife, if you want her to be bitchy, angry, grouchy, pissed off at you, then just drive the car however you want to. She says, slow down. I've been driving since I was 16. I don't need you to tell me how to drive. Man, you probably not going to be making love that night, dude.
What I love about having you on and getting to know you both a little bit better is you're just normal people, and I mean that in the best way possible. You're not coming in here in your ivory towers and thinking you're better than everybody else. You have a story just like we all do. You've got a story that you've lived through a lot of this, and you've found things and you're passing them along to others. So it's really enjoy that, and really enjoy getting to facilitate getting that story out to other people. Well, listen, I put your website on the screen here. You've said it a few times, but just in case people, we'll put a link below the video too, wherever you're watching this. GodSaveMyMarriage.com is your website. And I think you would, there's some, maybe explain that name. It's kind of a future looking name. You want to talk through, obviously we know kind of what it means, but what does it mean to you?
Well, that was my prayer back in the day. I'd say, God, save my marriage. So then once we got our miracle, we're living a life, we've written our book and stuff like that. I said to Joe, I wonder if they have God Save My Marriage as a website. And sure enough, they did. So that's how we got that. So yeah, it's beautiful. That was my prayer. That's how a lot of people find us, because they're praying, God save my marriage. My wife has said she's going to divorce me, or my husband says he's going to, wants a divorce. God save my marriage. We need help right now. So people are able to actually go on the website there, and actually there's a button over there where they can call us, and we'll end up, doing a quick counseling call with them to kind of get them the information and stuff. So see if we can help their situation.
Absolutely. There is a little link for 120 free pages from our first book. We kind of went and picked 120 pages, and anybody can get that as a PDF to read those excerpts, but encourage obviously the book to read. So you say, well, you guys got your miracle. Kathy prayed for 10 years. So if there's a wife listening and you're like, well, I've been praying for my marriage for 15 years. Am I going to get my miracle? It's really important that you pick up the key. We didn't get our miracle until Kathy treated me like a man. When she was just praying for me, loving me, respecting me, honoring me, no matter how I acted, she was treating me like a woman, because a man is supposed to agape love his wife. A woman responds to agape love that no matter how a wife is acting, if a husband will love her, he can cause her to start liking him and draw her back to the Lord and cause her to come back towards him.
Yeah.
Kathy was doing that for me, which has the opposite effect because I'm not a woman. And so when Kathy was praying for me, yeah, it kept her in the marriage for those years. It made me worse. Had in our second year of marriage, had Kathy at that point said, Joel, I'm going to divorce you if we don't get help and you don't change. She could have said that in our second year of marriage, and we can't go back and recreate the past. The problem back in those days, because that would have been, when did we get married? 1984?
84.
That would have been 1985, 1986. If she had told me, say, in 1986, Joel, I'm divorcing you, nobody back then understood marriage correctly that we knew of. So anybody that we would have gone to for help would have said, well, Kathy, you just need to submit to Joel more. You just need to love Joel more. And I'd yell at Kathy, be like, well, Kathy, what do you feel like you're contributing to the marriage that's causing Joel to yell at you? And so we probably would have just been divorced. We probably wouldn't have got a miracle. So if you've been praying for your husband for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, doing kind of like Kathy did, now you have new information available to you. So the praying doesn't do any good for a husband that's mistreating his wife. He has to have proper information, and he has to have a wife that is fed up with it. She's not going to stay with him if he doesn't change.
You don't want to put up with it anymore. I was accustomed to abuse. I grew up in a very abusive home. When I was 5, I started being abused by my father and by other men in my world for 10 years. So I was accustomed to abuse. I'd been taken advantage of by 2 guys in college. And then I married Joel and I was abused by him. So that was my comfort zone. So it's when I finally got fed up with it and said, I don't care if this is my comfort zone or not. I can't live like this anymore. So you kind of have to be done with it the way it is and decide that we're going to stop the way it is and we're going to move forward and get a better life and then acquire a better life. And that's ultimately what happened.
Absolutely. So if your marriage is fairly decent, hey, our books will just revolutionize your marriage. We have some good friends locally here, Kelly and Doug, that their marriage was decent. They were a Christian couple. They didn't have problems like we had.
Yeah.
They read our books. They said their marriage went through the roof. It was like heaven on earth. They never needed a counseling session. All they did was read the book. So we had a gal here that worked for the Daytona Beach News Journal. You can actually search online and find the article. Mm-hmm. We had called the News Journal a few times, and they said, we don't do interviews with local authors. One day we're at a gas station, and we see this young couple in a minivan, kind of reminded us of us. They had 3 or 4 children in the van. And so I took a book over and just said, hey, you young couple, you guys I feel like to give you a copy of our book. And we hardly ever just give the books away. And just felt like doing that. And it said, Kathy, like, yeah, let's go for it. And so she calls us like 2 weeks later. She's like, Joel and Kathy, do you remember us at the gas station? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. She says, well, my husband's not a Christian, but he read your book, the first book, and he is totally changed. He is treating me so amazing. This is a miracle. And she said, I work for the Daytona News Journal. I'd like to do an article on you guys. So what we'd been trying to get done at that point for 6 or 7 years after we wrote our book ended up just happening through that funny little exchange at a gas station. And she did a really, really nice article about us, and it reached a lot of people. And so the book, so you could be at any level in your marriage. If your marriage is decent, hey, get the books. It'll put it through the roof. If your marriage is kind of bad, maybe that's all you need. But then for those couples that are really having severe troubles, we've got all kinds of resources. We get phone calls 4 nights a week, and the 5-day intensives, and all kinds of cool stuff.
Well, really, what we teach a husband to do is to love the Bible says to love your wife like Christ. We teach a husband to allow Christ to live in love through him, allow Christ to live through him to his bride. As he does, he gets healed, she gets healed, and you become this one flesh relationship. So just, guys, if you'll just focus on love, focus out. That's what Jesus did. He focused out. And then we, the bride of Christ, went, wow, he loves me so much. He just treats me amazing. He laid down his life for me. And he takes care of me and loves me. That in that process, we begin to respond back. So husbands lays down his life for his bride, and she responds back. And it becomes this eternal love thing. It's amazing where we used to be and to where we are. I mean, it's awesome.
We wear some fun shirts. This shirt says, sometimes I look at my husband and think, damn, you are one lucky man, which I am, absolutely. I wear a shirt. Happy wife. A happy wife is a happy life. Can't see the whole shirt.
Well, and the other flip of that is a crabby wife is a crappy life. So we don't want to do that. We need to walk away from that. We're going to do happy wife, happy
A
life.
happy wife is a happy life. And I get to make Kathy happy by giving her hugs, smiles, and kisses all day,
Yeah.
listening to her when she talks, treating her with respect. And the back of my shirt is kind of a cool brand new shirt we just did that says, sex is for holidays.
Sure. I got it on.
Okay. All right. Sex is for holidays, all 365 of them. We have all 12 months calendars on the shirt, and each day has the date, the holiday in there, because there's a holiday every single day. Yeah, there's hamburger day, cheeseburger day, pizza day, drive-through day.
There certainly is. That's right. Well, listen, I really appreciate having you on, and I hope this will go out just like you ended up in that guy's class all those years ago, and then people have found you. I hope this finds the right people. And like I said when we started this, not something that we've ever tackled before, but we do have a platform here that reaches about 5 million people a month, and I'd love to get good news out or helpful news out whenever we can. So want to help people in a couple of different ways. One is just having you on and introducing people to you, and then of course, you do have your store here of everything that you offer, and you talked through it a lot there. But anything from people are probably on all different levels. Some people may have no need for this at all, or some people may be like the guy that they were doing great and then they put this into overdrive, or you might really be in crisis mode, or anywhere in between. And maybe you're more comfortable just getting a PDF or a DVD, or maybe you're kind of like your story where it's like, I need to be in this class this weekend, and find a way to get me in. So you've really got all of that on your store. And then you were kind enough to, you've created a coupon code here for anybody listening to this. Anything on the store except for the very first thing listed there, which is already basically discounted and free. But everything else, you should be able to add it to your cart if you're interested in it. And then you put in, let me click on this here. There we go. You've created a discount code called WLT. And so let me there you go, right down in this section right here. If there is something you're interested in, you put WLT there, and it's going to take 15% off anything you want to grab. So really appreciate you guys doing that, helping people out. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes you get grumpy people that come on and say, "Oh, well, are you going to charge me for this?" And this is what you guys do for a living, and you help a lot of people, and I love that. And there's no reason why helping a lot of people and doing this for a living, that is certainly something that is great. And we all do some sort of business one way or another. So I hope if people are interested, go ahead and do that. I'll put the link below this video. Let me click out of this. There was in that list there, I passed by it, but what I had seen as I was looking more into you both was that packet of 500 testimonials, and that's what really caught my eye to see. Right. Wow, I mean that's a great testimonial for you that you've helped so many people. So I love that. Let me put you back on.
So
there we go.
Are,
get you back on the screen
in a
there.
Miserable marriage. And it seems like
tremendous
there's
story.
No way
I
out.
think we probably only scratched the
we
surface of it. Maybe we'll have to have
really
you back on at some point.
We're
but,
Joel and Kathy.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Fantastic getting to know you both.
That's our website talking there.
Was an absolute
yes.
disaster.
Let me
Kathy's
get that.
life story could have been.
There we go.
Well, it's certainly been a pleasure being on here for sure. So we're very grateful that we got the opportunity. It's our passion. It's what we love to do. We think about marriage all the time and on how to help couples. So amen. It's great.
Well, and the other thing is, it is. I think having you on right now is probably very timely. Like I said, you initially reached out to me about a year ago, and I said, I'm sorry, the timing's just not right. I can't have you on, but. There tends to be, if you look at the stats, more marriage stress when the economy is bad, and it's kind of like a sports team, right? When you're winning, you can have all sorts of problems in the locker room, but if you're winning, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden, when you're losing, that's when all of the fights break out between the teammates, and everyone's mad at each other. And right now, we are on the tail end of 4 years of just a terrible economy, and I see it all the time from people that write into me, and people are, if they're lucky enough to have a job, that one job isn't keeping up enough with the inflation,
Yep.
and they need two jobs, and so that extra stress just gets carried on. So I think having you on right now is probably just the exact right timing. And it was sure an honor to have you join us for almost an hour. Thank you for coming on. For everybody, it's godsavemymarriage.com. The link is on the screen. Link will be below this video. Joel and Kathy, let me give you the last word. Thanks for coming on. How do you want to send us off here?
Absolutely. We welcome you to reach out, to contact us. And as Noah was saying about the book of 500 testimonies, you can actually get a free PDF link of that entire book with all the testimonies also there on the website. But we're here to help you. We really like helping also pastors or ministry leaders. We're here for everybody and we help everybody, but we have a real heart for that. And for those that have seen a lot of the things going on right now around the country with pastors and ministers and people having all kinds of serious troubles going on. If you're a pastor or a minister and you're having serious problems, please call us. We're well qualified to help you with those things. And of course, we know that there was a gentleman here recently out of California that was one of the biggest names in helping men with pornography and helping marriages. And he's got a huge ministry, but him and his wife just got divorced, and now he's married to the head of a large Christian TV network. Well, that's not us. We actually have a good marriage.
Amen.
And I don't want to step on toes for people that might love those folks, but I just noticed somebody earlier today online. They said that 1 year before that divorce was announced, and they were having trouble for 5 or 10 years. You don't just get divorced, especially when they had a marriage ministry. 1 year before, they went to a very expensive 5-day retreat. Not ours. Ours is 5 days. This one was a 5-day too, but it wasn't ours. But they said they spent thousands of dollars to go to that. And then just to find out a year later that Doug and his wife were divorced already. They were divorced and announcing it that he's going to marry Joni. But anyway, people get into bad situations, and we would like to help people get out of those bad situations before they go completely down the hole.
Yeah, and we're not your normal marriage ministry. We're very hands-on. So, normally if you go to a counselor, you meet with them once a week on a Thursday or something. We're very hands-on. We got our 4 phone calls per week. And then if you end up having an issue in your marriage, you end up texting me because you have my cell phone. Ladies, you end up texting me. If Joel has the moment to be able to call the husband and say, dude, what's going on? Let me help you in the moment. That's what we do. We're very hands-on. That's what we love to do. We live and breathe helping couples all day long, every day. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we get phone calls 4 nights a week. Where people can call in, and anywhere in the country, the world, 4 nights a week, they can call in, get on the phone, get help from couples. We're on 1 night a week. We've got 3 or 4 other couples that conduct the other nights. That they're all just like you. They had bad marriages. Now they got great marriages. They've walked it out, so they're stable, and they're now able to help other couples. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, one of the most fun things about my job is, covering the news. We've been doing it for 10 years. And, like I said, we've got about 5 million people that read the news that we cover every month. But in those 5 million it's people like you. And you reached out to me because you saw our news coverage. But the fun part for me is I get to meet people like you that are doing amazing things in your world, in your walk of life. And then we can shine a spotlight on that and get it out to a lot of people. So that's a real fun part.
We love you in the newsletter. We've been regular supporters of the We Love Trump newsletter for probably 4 or 5 years. I don't know. You have to look on your back office. But we've been, monthly supporters. We just signed up a long time ago, and just $5 or $10 a month. I forget, but a little support every single month. And
we're part of help changing things around.
Yeah, well, and I think that's really that's so nice to hear. Thank you, and that's what we found these last 10 years is that people are finding each other, they're connecting, the right people are rising up and taking action, and I think for a long time we were just kind of asleep as Americans and sleepwalking through life, but now we're realizing that wasn't the best solution. It's time to wake up and get involved. So, well, listen, thanks for coming on the show, Joel and Kathy. Kathy and Joel, we'll have you back on at some point in the future. All the links, wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, we'll have the links below the video, and you can go check out if you want to see any more information. So
that'll be absolutely great. Thank you. Right.
We've discussed supply chain issues, inflation, and made in America for a while. Big box stores stayed open during the pandemic, while small businesses suffered. The wealthiest got richer, while mom and pop shops suffered. What will we do about it? How can we make our voices heard? Let's vote with our dollars. No more shopping at big box stores with cargo ship products. Avoid corporations that harm us with toxic chemicals. PatriotSwitch.com helps us leave big box stores forever. Shop factory direct at family owned, Patriot owned, made in America businesses. PatriotSwitch.com was created for people like us. Have you seen any hurt business owners? PatriotSwitch.com can make a difference. We can shift market share from businesses that don't share our values to family-owned companies.